deep beneath the American landscape, hidden in places most people would never think to look. There are doors that were never meant to open, massive steel lids, weighing tons, sealed into the ground. Behind them, weapons powerful enough to change the course of human history in less than 30 minutes. And for decades during the Cold War, those weapons stood ready. Not in distant battlefields, not in secret foreign bases, but right here inside the United States, waiting. Because if the warning ever came, if radar screens lit up, if enemy missiles were detected crossing the horizon, there would be no time to hesitate. Only minutes to decide, minutes to respond, minutes to determine whether the world would survive or end. This is a story of America's nuclear missile silos, the hidden network that stood on constant alert, prepared for a war that no one wanted but everyone feared. At the height of the Cold War, the world was locked in a fragile balance. The United States and the Soviet Union faced each other with unprecedented destructive power. Both sides possessed nuclear weapons capable of destroying entire cities in seconds and entire nations in hours. But the true danger wasn't just the weapons, it was the speed. Intercontinental ballistic missiles could travel across the globe in less than half an hour. There would be no warning in days, or even hours, only minutes. That reality transformed military strategy, because in a nuclear conflict, the first strike could determine everything. If one side could launch a surprise attack and destroy the other's ability to respond, it could gain a decisive advantage, and that possibility created constant pressure. Inside American command centers, planners faced a critical question. How do you ensure retaliation when time itself becomes enemy? The answer would shape one of the most powerful and complex defense systems ever built, a network of nuclear missile silos, spread across vast regions of the United States, hidden in plains, deserts, and remote terrain, individually hardened, separately controlled, designed to survive even a nuclear attack. These silos weren't just storage facilities. They were launch sites, each one housing an intercontinental ballistic missile, fueled, armed, and ready to be launched within minutes of receiving an order. And they were always ready, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, year after year. But building such a system wasn't simple, because placing nuclear weapons inside your own territory came with enormous risks. They had to be protected, secured, and above all, reliable. If the system failed when it was needed most, the consequences would be catastrophic. And if it launched by mistake, the consequences could be even worse. The margin for error was zero. At the same time, the Soviet Union was developing its own missile capabilities. Its arsenal was growing, its technology improving, and its ability to strike the United States becoming more credible with each passing year. The threat wasn't theoretical anymore. It was real, and it was getting closer, which meant the United States needed more than just missiles. It needed a system that could guarantee response under any circumstances, a system that could operate under pressure, under attack, under the most extreme conditions imaginable. And that system had to be controlled by people, carefully selected, highly trained, and prepared to make decisions that no one should ever have to make. Deep underground, inside reinforced launch control centers, crews would live and work in isolation, cut off from the outside world, surrounded by layers of security and technology. Their mission was simple in theory: wait, monitor, and if the order ever came, execute. Because once that order was given, there would be no turning back, no second chances, only the irreversible sequence of events that would follow. And if you're interested in Cold War stories like this, where technology, responsibility, and unimaginable stakes come together, consider subscribing, because what happened inside those silos was far more intense and far more human than most people realize. Far below the surface, behind locked blast doors and reinforced concrete, the system stood ready, silent, unseen, but never inactive, because somewhere at any moment, the next alert could come, and when it did, everything would depend on what happened inside those underground rooms. The journey down into a missile silo began with a descent, not just physically, but psychologically. From the open sky of the American plains into a sealed world of steel, concrete, and absolute control, hidden in remote regions, Montana, North Dakota, Wyoming. These facilities were deliberately placed far from major population centers. To an untrained eye, they looked almost ordinary. A fenced compound, a few structures, nothing that revealed what lay beneath. But below that quiet surface was one of the most tightly controlled environments on Earth. A reinforced capsule buried deep underground, protected by layers of security, designed to survive a nuclear blast. Inside, 2 officers stood watch at all times. Always 2, never 1, because in a system where a single decision could change the fate of the world, no action was ever left to an individual. Every step required verification. Every command required confirmation. This was the foundation of control, to prevent unauthorized launches, to eliminate error, to ensure that if a missile was ever launched, it was done with absolute certainty. Life inside the Launch Control Center was defined by routine and tension. Long shifts, confined spaces, constant monitoring of systems that were rarely seen by the outside world. Rows of analog panels, switches, and indicators filled the room. Status lights tracked the readiness of missiles spread across miles of territory. Communication lines connected the crew to higher command, to other silos, to a network that stretched across the country. Everything was always on. Everything was always ready. Because in this environment, readiness wasn't a temporary state. It was permanent. The officers trained relentlessly. Simulations, emergency procedures, launch protocols repeated again and again, not because they expected to use them, but because if the moment ever came, there would be no time to think, only to act. Above ground, each missile silo stood sealed beneath massive blast doors, engineered to withstand extreme force, designed to open in seconds. Inside each silo, a missile stood vertically, fueled and armed, waiting. These were intercontinental ballistic missiles, capable of traveling thousands of miles, carrying nuclear warheads across continents in less than half an hour. From the moment of launch, there would be no stopping them, no recall, no second chance. That reality shaped everything about how the system was designed, because once initiated, the process was irreversible. At the same time, the threat continued to evolve. The Soviet Union expanded its own missile forces. New technologies improved accuracy. Launch readiness increased. The window for response became smaller and smaller. Minutes became the defining measure of survival, which meant the United States needed a system that could react instantly, and more importantly, correctly. Inside the control centers, alert procedures were clear and uncompromising. If early warning systems detected incoming missiles, signals would be transmitted through secure communication lines. Codes would be received, authenticated, verified. The process was deliberate, but fast, because delay could mean destruction. Yet even within that urgency, safeguards remained. Multiple layers of confirmation, cross-checks between crews, systems designed not just to respond quickly, but to respond accurately, because the greatest danger wasn't only being attacked, it was reacting incorrectly. A false alarm, a misinterpreted signal, a mistake in a system where mistakes could not be undone. That possibility haunted every aspect of nuclear command and control. And it was why discipline inside those underground rooms had to be absolute. The officers weren't just operators. They were the final link in a chain of decisions that stretched from the highest levels of government down to a pair of keys, turned simultaneously. And those keys represented something far greater than machinery. They represented trust. Trust in the system. Trust in the information. Trust that the order, if it ever came, was correct. Because once those keys turned, there would be no turning back. Still, day after day, year after year, the system remained on alert, silent, controlled, prepared, and for most of the world, completely invisible. But behind that silence, there was always a question waiting. What would happen if the system was ever truly tested? The system was designed to function under pressure, but no amount of preparation could remove the reality of what it was built to do. Because one day, the alarms might not be a drill. Inside the Launch Control Center, everything depended on the signal. It would arrive without warning. A coded transmission, cold, precise, unmistakable. Not a conversation, not a discussion. An order, the crew would move immediately. No hesitation, no confusion. Training would take over. Authentication procedures would begin. Sealed codes would be opened. Characters compared, verified, confirmed against secure channels. Every step designed to answer a single question. Is this real? Because if it was, time would already be running out. Above them, early warning systems, radar networks, satellite detection, would be tracking objects crossing the sky. Calculations would estimate trajectories, impact zones, time to arrival, minutes, sometimes less. Inside the capsule, the air would feel different, tighter, heavier, not because anything had changed physically, but because everything had changed in meaning. The officers knew exactly what would follow. If the order was confirmed, they would receive targeting instructions, specific coordinates, assigned missiles, precise launch sequences. The system would guide them, but the final step was still theirs. 2 keys, separated, controlled, turned at the same time. That requirement wasn't technical. It was intentional. No single person could launch a missile. No individual could make that decision alone. It had to be shared, deliberate, unavoidable. And as the sequence moved forward, the countdown would begin. Not a dramatic clock on a wall, but controlled, internal process. Systems aligning, missiles preparing, silos unlocking. Above ground, the massive blast doors would be ready to open. And below, the crew would stand at the final threshold. Because once initiated, there would be no stopping what came next. The missiles would launch. They would rise from the American landscape in seconds, breaking through the sky, accelerating beyond reach. Within minutes, they would leave the atmosphere. Within half an hour, they would reach their targets. Entire cities, strategic sites, infrastructure, all determined in advance, all executed with precision. It was a system designed not for flexibility, but for certainty. And that certainty carried a weight that few people ever experienced. Because the officers inside those silos weren't just following procedures. They were participating in a moment that could define the fate of millions. And they knew it. Every drill, every simulation, every quiet hour spent monitoring systems. All of it built toward a possibility they hoped would never arrive. Yet the system had to be ready. Because deterrence depended on that readiness. It depended on the belief on both sides that if a strike was launched, a response would follow. Without hesitation, without failure, without doubt. That belief was what held the balance. But it also meant that the system had to operate perfectly, even under the most extreme conditions imaginable. And that's where the true tension existed. Not just in the weapons, but in the responsibility placed on the people who controlled them. Because if the moment ever came, it wouldn't be machines that made the final decision. It would be human beings in a sealed room, holding keys, knowing that once they turned them, history would change forever. In the end, those keys were never turned in war. And that was the point. For decades, the missile silos remained on constant alert, silent, hidden, and ready, but never used in the way they were built for. They stood as a permanent reminder that the most powerful weapons of the Cold War were not meant to be fired. They were meant to prevent the moment from ever coming. Across the American landscape, beneath open skies and quiet fields, those underground systems carried a responsibility unlike anything in history. They were not symbols of aggression. They were guarantees. Guarantees that no enemy could strike without consequence. Guarantees that the United States would endure even under the worst possible conditions. And that certainty shaped behavior far beyond those silos. It forced caution. It imposed limits. It created a balance where neither side could act without risking everything. That balance, fragile, tense, and constantly tested, became a foundation of Cold War stability. Because when both sides understood that a nuclear war could not be won, it became a war that could not be fought. The missile silos were at the center of that reality. They were part of a larger system, alongside submarines, bombers, and early warning networks that ensured the United States maintained a credible, survivable response at all times. But unlike those other elements, the silos represented something uniquely immediate. They were fixed, known, always targeted, and yet still capable of launching. Even under the threat of destruction, that resilience sent a clear message. No matter how sudden an attack might be, it would never be enough. And that message held. Through crises, through moments when tensions rose to the brink, through years when the world came closer to nuclear confrontation than most people realized, the system endured, not because it was perfect, but because it was reliable, disciplined, controlled by people who understood the weight of their role. Men and women who stood watch in silence, knowing that their mission was not to act, but to be ready to act. That distinction defined everything, because the true measure of their success was not in what they did, but in what never happened. No launch, no escalation, no irreversible chain of events. And as the Cold War came to an end, many of those silos were deactivated, dismantled, or repurposed. But the legacy remained, a reminder of a time when the world stood on the edge and was held there by systems designed to prevent it from falling. Today, that history still echoes beneath the surface, in the technology that followed, in the strategies that evolved, and in the understanding that power, when controlled with discipline and responsibility, can preserve stability instead of destroying it. Because in the Cold War, victory wasn't defined by destruction. It was defined by restraint. And deep beneath the ground, in those silent rooms where decisions could have changed everything, the United States held that line. For more stories like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because the Cold War was shaped not just by the battles that were fought, but by the ones that never were.